Welcome to Living Well. I'm so glad that you've joined us for another segment. This segment is going to be really important today. You know, many people are making New Year's resolutions and they're wanting to make changes, but this lesson today is about changing for good. And so not all changes sometimes we think of as being good. Sometimes we think they're being bad. But today we're going to talk about how to make changes for good. I want to remind you that today our lesson is for educational purposes only. Again, we do not assess, we do not treat, we do not diagnose. Everything that we talk about is either biblical based, from research, personal experiences, or even you may be sharing as well. We don't assess, diagnose, treat any medical or any psychological conditions, and all the information that you will hear today will pertain to your own personal health. So again, if there's something that you're interested in, please consult your personal physician. And remember, we cannot take responsibility for the choices that you make for your health. As much as we want to share good news with you, it's really ultimately up to you to make lifestyle changes. So what we're going to talk about today is it really possible to change from unhealthy lifestyle habits to healthy lifestyle habits? Is it really easy, or is it possible to stop overeating, or those food addictions that we may have with sugar, or a sedentary lifestyle, just sitting around and not moving as much, or stopping smoking or drinking, or even negative thinking? Did you know that negative thinking affects our health? And also some people overwork, and that also affects their health and stress. So today the question is it possible to change unhealthy habits? And only you will be able to answer that for us today. So I know that you're just started. People are dreaming big, they've set goals. But what I learned is only 8% of people stick to their New Year's resolutions. That's not a lot of people. Millions and millions of people make resolutions that they're going to have a better year ahead of them, but only 8% actually stick to those resolutions. People have made resolutions to lose weight, to get better organized, to do better. Some of us have even made resolutions. But we want to talk about, how do you make goals and make them stick? How do you stick to your goals? How do you change for good? And that's what we're talking about today. So there's the verse in the Bible from 3 John 2. And I know that God knows that we make goals. So he said, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospers." So what this tells me is God knows that we're going to make goals. He even has made provisions for us to keep those goals, because he wants us to prosper, not only spiritually, but also physically, in our mind, in our body, as well as in our spirit. So this will be a verse that you're going to hear for weeks and weeks and weeks ahead, because we believe that we can prosper in health, even as our soul prospers. Do you believe that? I certainly hope you do. And so the next couple of weeks, Emlyn and I, we will be going through this book, and we'll be going through it with you. If you have this book, this is an amazing book. It's called 8 Weeks to Optimum Health. Not good health, but optimum. That means the best health possible. And it's by Dr. Andrew Will. And if this is on Amazon, if you have this in your book of libraries, this is an excellent reference book that we will be using for the next probably 12 weeks, because the first 4 weeks are just laying the foundation. And then the next 8 weeks are actually action oriented for us to engage in actually improving our health, healing our mind, healing our body, and healing our spirit. So today I'm going to talk about people can change. What I want you to hear loud and clear, that people can change. And we've heard testimonies from many people that people can change. So really, change is all about you. And I want you to look at yourself in the mirror. If you're close to something, it's really all up to you. It's up to you. But the questions that I must ask you is, do you want to give up pain? Do you want to give up allergies? Do you want to give up stress? And many of those things can be corrected just by making lifestyle changes. Do you really want to feel healthy and live really a more abundant and a more optimal life? And do you want to grow old and grow old healthy? We know of people who grow old 70, 80, and sometimes they're not in the best of health, but we want to grow old, and we want to be healthy growing old. And then, do you want to think positive and live, even just live healthy? Those are questions that I'm asking you, because the only way that change can come about is that you engage in the process and make some decisions about how you want to live your life. So imagine, just imagine a new you in 2022. Imagine that now we're in January. Imagine what you could look like in March or June or September, or even in December. Imagine a new you by making lifestyle changes. It can happen. It can happen. And that's why we're here. That's why we're having the Living Well, because we want you to be your best self. So again, let's think about how we can change for good. There's 4 things that we're going to talk about very specifically on this platform today. And it is really about how to protect your health, how to improve your health. Maybe you are already not doing the best, maybe have some type of chronic disease or some acute disease, how to improve feeling even better than you feel now, and even how to heal your body from the inside out, inwardly then out, and how to use the healing power of nature. Many times doctors will give us medications, which I'm not saying is good or bad, but what I can say that there's many things that we can do in nature that we've talked about in previous programs that we can do to heal the body from the inside out. And then lastly, how do we have that optimum health? That's the goal of everyone. How do we live our best life mentally, physically, and spiritually, first for God, for self, for our families, and then so we can share this good news with the world. So I have a little poll that I want all of you to participate in, and this is an anonymous poll. So you'll answer the questions, but then when I display the results, it will not have your name on them. So give me just a moment to pull up the poll. And this poll is called Family History. Can you see the poll? Can you all see the poll? Hello?
I did.
Okay, so let me just stop it for a moment, and then I'm going to relaunch it again. And I'm going to see if you all can take it. You should be able to take it. Let's see. Give me just a moment. I'm going to see if I can get you all to actually take it. Let me actually flip the polls. I think I'll be able to do. Let's do this one first. Can you see this poll? The one says change for good?
No, nothing, not on the screen.
No.
You can't see it?
No.
Can you see it now?
No.
No.
Give me just a moment. Let me stop screen share. And let's do this again. Because I want you all to be able to take the poll.
Americans over 64 are getting a stimulus this month, but you can get it only if you claim it. New stimulus can help seniors pay.
Can you, let me see here. The poll now.
No.
It says change for good. Okay, so let me do this since I'm the only one that can see it, it looks like. Let me do this for the family. So I'm going to ask you a question.
It was there.
There is a whole screen, a page with 3 or 4
Okay.
topics.
Okay. So can you see the word, the first one that says my habits today will affect my health tomorrow? Can you see that?
No, that's not it. Not there.
You don't see that?
No.
Okay. Let's do this then. Let me go back. Okay, so since you can't see that, I'm going to keep on with the presentation, and then at the end, I'll see if I can pull that in. There's 2 polls that I want to participate in, which I think will be really interesting to find out the outcome. But let me do this. Let me keep going just for a little bit, and then we will see if we can pull those in later. because I do want you to participate in that. So again, we have a family history, and that first poll really was about our family history. Many in our families, we know of family members who may have hypertension, who may have diabetes, who may have high cholesterol, who may have many and various diseases. And what we talk about here when we're saying changing for good is what can we change in our family history that we can actually live a better life and actually lay a foundation for the future generations. So did you know that 6 in 10 adults have some type of a chronic disease? And did you know that 4 in those same 10 people have 2 or more chronic diseases? Pretty stunning. So that means if there were 10 of us on the call today, that means that 6 of us would have some type of chronic disease, and 4 of us would have at least 2 or more of those chronic diseases. That's a pretty high number. And so some of the diseases that people are getting are heart disease, cancer, chronic lung disease, stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and chronic kidney disease. And you may know of people who may have one of these diseases. And according to the Center of Disease Prevention, most of these diseases are related to lifestyle. The lifestyle that we live, whether people are using tobacco, which is causing emphysema or lung diseases, poor nutrition, lack of physical exercise, or even excessive alcohol use. So chronic diseases, many of them are preventable if we would make lifestyle changes. So you may know of someone with these diseases or conditions, or you may have them. And the purpose of our conversation today is to know that you can change, I can change for good, so that we can actually live a better and a higher quality of life. Because after all, being sick is expensive. So the question I would have for all of us, what are our habits? What habits do we have? How do we eat? How often do we exercise? How is our breathing? How do we use our mind? And do we use vitamins and minerals and herbs in our diet to make sure that we have proper nutrients that we may need? So those 5 things we will cover over the next 8 weeks. We will talk more specifically about eating, drinking, even breathing affects your health. And people are not always mindful of breathing because breathing is so automatic. But when we're in the fresh air, there's proper ways to breathe. When we're sitting, proper ways to breathe so that we can get the most oxygen into our body, to our brain, to our organs, our liver, kidneys, heart, lungs, so that they can function at their best. And then how do we use our mind? That's going to be very important that we focus on that as well. So again, let's talk more about the belief about changes. I'm going to come back to that because my poll, I'm afraid it may not come up. So we'll come back to that. So let's talk about challenges and changes. We do know that changing can be challenging. We know that, right? So we all have tried to make some changes in our lives, and there's a term called inertia, and that's the resistance to motion, action, or change. And we've heard people say, oh, I tried to diet, I tried to walk, I tried to, to get better rest. And there's always some type of excuse or some type of reason as to why we're not maximizing or making those movement forward on those goals. So that's the challenge, is because many times we remember what we did in the past and we remember how it worked or it did not work. And so it's very important that we realize that there's some things that we can do to make it a little easier to change. So number one, why people oftentimes do not change is because their goals are very, 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 I'm gonna say very, very vague, meaning that they have not been very specific about what they want to do and how they want to do it. Procrastination, I'll start next week, I'll start next month. What I'd like to tell you is whenever you decide that you want to change at that moment, because once you procrastinate, it's easier to procrastinate. And then sometimes we'll invent excuses. Oh, it's raining outside, I can't exercise. Oh, something is happening, I can't eat right. I worked late, I don't have time to cook. So many times if we invent excuses, it makes change so much harder. And then sometimes we're unwilling to go through all the phases of change. Because remember, sometimes we'll start on a journey and then we'll have a slip up and a setback, and then we just stop altogether. But what I would say is don't let your slip ups cause you to give up. Don't let your slip ups cause you to give up. Continue on the journey of living a healthy life. Whatever that goal you put out before you, work towards it until you achieve it. But change is easier when you have SMART goals. If they're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. We're going to talk about, I'm going to give you an example of that on the next slide. But this is when goals are easier to attain and to maintain for good, is when we have SMART goals written out. Also, it's easier when you're working towards a positive goal. You've heard people say, oh, I don't eat cake, I don't eat cookies, I don't. But instead of saying that I eat more fruits, I eat more vegetables, I get more fresh air, and put it more in a positive context versus about what you don't do. Because when you think of it in a positive way, you're more likely to move towards a positive and away from that which is least positive. And then when I understand the cost of not changing, if I don't, what can happen? More costly, more doctor bills, more time off work, don't feel my best, can't play with my grandkids, my nieces, my nephews, my children, can't travel as much when you don't feel your best. So when you understand the cost of not changing, oftentimes that is when people change. Also, sometimes we've gone to the doctor and he may tell me, or she may tell me, if you don't change your habits, these are going to be the outcomes. And that's oftentimes can be things that can make us change our mind really quickly. So I'm going to give you an example of a SMART change. And I want you to begin to think of the one thing that you want to change this year as it relates to your health, as it relates to your being, whether it's professionally, personally, academically. What is the one thing you want to change? So let me give you an example of a SMART change. This is my SMART change, right? So a lot of times I'll say, I want to exercise more. That's a great goal, but I need to be more specific, right? So it needs to be measurable. And for me, may not sound like a lot for you, but remember, this is my goal that I'm trying to do better. So it is walking at least 15 minutes 3 times per week. I can exceed that, but the minimum I need to do is at least 15 minutes 3 times a week. Ideally, we should walk every single day, ideally. But when you're beginning out on a new goal, sometimes it's better to start slow, be consistent, and achieve it versus making these grandiose goals and then not meet them. Inconsistency is unhealthy. So I started out with this, and so actionable. My 15 minutes 3 times a week can be wherever, in my backyard, around the patio. I can walk at the park, and even maybe engage a friend to walk with me to keep me accountable. So I would encourage everyone that we need an accountability buddy, someone who's going to ask you, Jennifer, did you walk those 15 minutes 3 times this week? Because when you have someone that you're holding accountability to, God first, of course, but then someone here on earth, it's really important that they can keep you on your journey to health and wellness so that you can change for good. Then it has to be relevant. So why do I want to walk? Why is that important to me? That's the big why. That's irrelevant. I want to increase my circulation, my mobility, and my flexibility. Why? Because both my mother and my father have peripheral vascular disease. So in their lower extremities, both of my parents were very active when they were younger. They walked around, they were very active. When they got older, they didn't move around as much, and both of them ended up with peripheral vascular disease. And how we detected it was they got a little sore on their leg, a little ulcer on their leg, and it wouldn't heal. So when they went to the doctor and they did x-rays and they did studies, they realized it's not healing because the circulation in the lower extremity is blocked. They had blockages in their vessels, in their veins. And remember, when you sit for long periods of time and we're not getting circulation in our legs, is affecting how we're going to function later on. So my big why for exercising more is because I want to make sure that I'm already at risk for cardiovascular disease, but I don't want to get any type of peripheral vascular disease. And then time bound. So we have to start, okay, starting tomorrow, this is the week that I'm going to do it, 15 minutes, 3 times per week. Now, can I achieve that? I believe that's doable. And can I do more? Absolutely. I'm going to try to do more, but at least starting somewhere. So let's think about, what are you willing to do to actually make a change? Would someone like to share a goal that they may have and they like to share how they plan to achieve it?
I plan to drink more water.
Okay.
And so I plan to, when I get up in the mornings and I have my devotions, to drink the water along with my devotions so that I can at least get in at least 3 cups of water before I start my day.
Great. Great. So how many cups are you aiming for every day?
I know I need 8, but since I'm just starting, I'm gonna try and do at least 4 to 6, I guess.
Okay.
And then increase it up to the 8 that I need to get up to.
That's a very good example. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? Why is that important to you? Why is that important to you?
Because I tend to get dehydrated, which causes a lot of other problems, headaches and different things like that. And I know that I need to get my water in. Otherwise, you also get like stiff joints and things like that. So I'm like, no, I need to get my water in.
Absolutely. So her why is really for herself so she can feel better. Yes, and the body functions better when it has water. The joints and every single organ needs that water. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else like to share their smart change? Okay, well, think about it, but that is the formula that I, go ahead.
Take more time for recreation, as I think of it now, instead of doing work so much. But recreation is a big part of health. So that would be one thing that I can think of for a change for this year.
Great, absolutely. So again, remember, that's a big part of health, that socialization, recreation, very critical to our health and our well-being. Thank you for sharing. But I want all of us to think of one thing that we want to change, write it down, because when we write things down, we're more likely to follow through with them. When we have a friend to do it with, we're more likely to follow through as well. So if you want someone, walking is, I don't mind walking, I will walk, but it is much more fun with when you're walking with someone talking. And so next week, I'm going to ask you, and you all need to ask me and hold me accountable if I did my 3 days per week, 15 minutes at least, okay? So let's hold each other accountable. So let's see. Now my screen just paused on me. So let's continue talking about changing for good. So everything that we've talked about so far is really about changing for good. And when we say changing for good, it means it's going to make your life better. Walking is going to make my life better. Drinking water will make your life better. Socialization will make your life better. All of those things are all to make our lives better. There are many benefits, many benefits to changing for good. Mentally, we think clearer. We're not as stressed. Physically, we are more mobile, because remember, when we're not mobile, we actually can become disabled. And we don't want to have to put any hardships on our families because we have not really continued to keep our bodies moving. And then spiritually, this also benefits us when we change for good. We know the Bible has many verses, many examples of why it's important to live healthy and make healthy lifestyle choices. I think about Daniel when he says, I purposed in my heart not to eat the king's meat. He purposed in his heart. So we have the purpose in our heart to live well. And then also our well-being. We're happier. We smile more when we feel well. When we're not happy, it shows on our face many times, grimacing pain, anything like that. And remember, sometimes even arthritis, when we don't drink enough water, stiffens our joints. There's so many things, but we're much happier when we are doing things that are healthy for our body, our overall health, but we can use natural things for healing. And that's what I would encourage all of us to do. If a doctor gives you a prescription, are there things that you can take naturally? And then reduce your medication. Sometimes we just need to make sure that we can reduce our medications because, and I'm not saying get off your meds, all I'm saying is consult your physician before you take yourself off of any of your medications. And then reduce the healthcare costs. Does those sound like things that you would want to do? Be happier, well-being, overall health? What are your thoughts about that?
Definitely.
Definitely. Absolutely. It is so important that we make lifestyle choices that can make a difference in our lives, because our family can tell when we don't feel well. They know when we don't feel well. The community, I mean, they're affected by sick people. As we know, with this pandemic going on right now, we know that a lot of people are affected by it. And these are things that can help us prevent getting the chronic diseases that I mentioned earlier. So let's continue to share a little bit more about our changing for good. Please forgive me. There we go. Okay, so when I think about changing for good, what comes to my mind, and this is just something I wrote, choosing to change unhealthy habits. We want to change unhealthy habits before receiving a diagnosis or a prognosis of an irreversible health condition. You and I have heard of people who've gotten irreversible health conditions or a diagnosis, and immediately they're like, what do I need to do to change? What do I need to do to get better? But what we're talking about here on Living Well is we want to choose to change unhealthy habits before we receive a diagnosis or a prognosis of an irreversible health condition. This can contribute to a better quality of life. All of us want to live a better quality of life. The Bible talks about that we should live life and live it more abundantly. And so this is what we want to do in this life as well. So let's talk about the basic steps. These are basic steps to changing for good. Self-select, that means you make the choice about how you want to live. And then you take the responsibility for living well. So again, we can't blame anybody who's cooking and say, oh, if they hadn't cooked my favorite dish, I wouldn't have eaten that. Or I didn't have time to cook. So we have to take responsibility for living well. And then sometimes you have to look for advice, whether it's reading, internet. There's so many books out there. The book we're going to be using from Dr. Will, the Optimum, 8 Steps to Optimum Health, that's advice. That is resources. And then you want to act on it and add positive behaviors. All of this leads to optimum health. So it's a matter of taking each of these steps one by one and making a decision of where you want to be in your life. That is all about us making that decision. And then when we think about what's your story, what's my story, all of us have a story, a health story. Every one of us have probably been to the doctor at some point in time, and we've heard something that maybe was concerning, and we had to make a decision. We had to make a decision about how we were going to live. I have known of people who have gotten a diagnosis of cancer, made lifestyle changes by eating more fruits and vegetables, exercising, getting outside, and they have recovered. You may have heard of people the same way. Everybody's situation, everybody's story will be just a little different. But a story that does come to my mind is my mother's story. When we were younger, her prayer was she wanted to live long enough to see all of us graduate from high school. And that was her prayer because one of her friends died very young and left, there was quite a few children, young children behind. So my mother prayed that she would live to all of us got through high school. And I know she had to make lifestyle changes in order for that to happen, because we can't just pray to live long and not take responsibility for our health. So with God, my mother lived to be 92. And so that was a blessing. She saw all of us graduate from high school and achieve many of the lifetime goals. But every week on this program going forward, we want to hear a story, something that God has done for you that has improved your life. It's going to happen in the week. something will happen that God will reveal to you to either say no to something or to say yes to more fruits and vegetables or yes to more walking or yes to getting more rest. But we want you to tell your story as we tell our stories and witness of what God's goodness is for us, it can actually help others on the journey as well. And so here's some very simple changes that have big rewards. First, you have to be motivated. You may have to make an attempt, and then you have to have positive reinforcement. So what that means is when you're motivated to do something, go ahead and try it. Do not remember the past or what didn't work. And if you do, figure out why it didn't work. And then next, look at what is your positive reinforcement? Who do you have around you? And really try to use natural remedies. There's so many things that can be used for the body to lower the blood pressure, whether it's celery or cucumbers. There's many simple things that can lower the blood pressure or normalize the blood sugar or lower the cholesterol. And those are the things that we want you to start exploring and using and put it to the test and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then if it doesn't work for you, then maybe there's something else you need to do. And then make sure that you realize that there are healthy rewards and that you can remake your life. So where you are today, you may not be feeling your best, thinking your best, but you can. So you have to keep telling yourself, I can change for good. I want to change for good. And this is why. In Matthew 7:7, it says, ask and it shall be given to you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and the door shall be opened unto you. So how does this apply to health? Everything. Everything, absolutely. If we ask God to help us to make healthier lifestyle choices, I believe he will. If we seek the resources, I believe that he will give those to us to help us to live healthier. And if we knock, honestly, beginning to just attempt, that's that knock, you go ahead and do it, I believe that God will make provisions for us to make sure that we are living the healthiest life possible. And so there's promises that we can change for good and for God. Check that out. Promises for good and for God, so that we can change them for good. My favorite one of all is, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Yes, God can help me change and live healthy. Yes, God can help you. God can help your family members. Maybe you're already doing it, but you want to encourage someone else to do it. You can. And there hath no temptation taken you, such as common to man, but God is faithful. God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but with the temptation also make a way of escape that ye may be able to bear it. And that's in 1 Corinthians 10:13. So I have a story to tell. It has happened years ago, but I will always remember it. I was at work one day and they were having some type of celebration at work, and they were bringing all these sugary things in, desserts in. And I said, oh, wow, I don't indulge in that. I would love to have a healthy dessert. That's what I said. I would love to have a healthy dessert. This is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Within minutes, my sister-in-law comes over to my office and she has in a little bag and she says, Jennifer, I brought you some vegan cupcakes. And they were healthy, they were nutritious, they were not sugary, they were really good little cupcakes. And I will always remember how he actually sent my sister-in-law, who never, ever, ever, ever comes to my office, to bring me cupcakes. So that's just a testament of how God wants us to live healthy and happy and holy. He made me happy that day by sending my sister-in-law with those cupcakes. And I can just go on and on about how God will make that way of escape, so that he took that temptation away from me eating those things that were unhealthy to eating the healthy cupcakes that my sister brought to me. But anyway, and then in Matthew 19:26, it says, but Jesus beheld them and said, with men, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. So again, another Bible scripture of something being possible with God. So do you want to change your family history? Do you want to change your family's health history? So maybe your mother, your father, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, maybe they did have health conditions that you're currently experiencing. But right now, all of us can make a change. We can make a difference. We can actually stop and we can actually change the course of our family's history going forward by the lifestyle that we live now. We can change it. We have the power through Christ to change it. If we make lifestyle changes, we're changing it for future generations, that they may not have to suffer with the same chronic illnesses or diseases that we may have. So the question is to you, what is the one unhealthy habit do you want to change for good? We're back to that question again. Remember, I asked you that back at the SMART goals. So now we're back at it again. We're asking the same question again. Why? Because it's really important for us to make a decision today, not tomorrow. The Bible says, if you hear his voice, harden not your heart. You open it up and say, listen, I know I'm struggling. I know I struggle with walking. In fact, right now, my tennis shoes are sitting by the door to remind me that I need to go walking after this, after I get off the program today, because it is important that I start today with what I know will help my circulation, my movement, every organ in my body benefit from the exercise. So what satisfaction right now does your unhealthy behavior give you? Are you really satisfied with it? And if not, the next question is, then what is your reason for changing? Why are you going to change it? How do you plan to change it? And then the biggest question I want to give to all of us is, who will provide you encouragement and support during the change process? Every day we have to make a decision to live well, because when we don't, you'll be looking back and 3 months later, we're further and further off track. So it's an everyday decision. So really, are you willing to move forward? So visualize yourself reaching your goals a month, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. And at the end of the year, you'll have like a story to tell. But every single week, all of us should have some story to tell how God has made provisions for us to live healthy, because he does. He has people in our way. He has situations that will allow us to live healthy. So you're never too old or too young to make better lifestyle choices, because healthy choices will benefit you no matter how old you are. So sometimes people think they're too old. My mother was 92 and she still was trying to learn how to eat healthier and healthier and healthier. Had an aunt that was 95, same thing. And so you're never too old. I think what we have to keep in context is when we're making better lifestyle choices, it pleases God. It pleases him, and it allows him to care for our bodies the way he intended them to be cared for. But when we put unhealthy and have unhealthy practices, it makes it very difficult for us to live the best life that God intended for us. So your challenge for the week, you ready for your challenge? Absolutely. I hear you say, yes, I'm ready.
Yes.
So we're going to eat more fruits and vegetables and grains. Okay. So we're not going to say cut out meat, cut out that. We're just going to eat more of those things that are good and healthy for us. More than put on your plate first as much as you can, and then put your other things on there, and let's see how that works. And then enjoy the fresh air. We talked about the importance of fresh air. Breathing in, breathing out. When you're outside, walking from your car, walking anywhere, be mindful of your breathing and just breathe in as deep as you can, cleanse your lungs. Breathing fresh air in, breathing well actually reduces stress. Many people don't think about that, but if you're stressed, begin to be mindful of your breathing. Slow it down, inhale, exhale, and just be really mindful, and you actually can calm yourself down. Begin to think positive thoughts. Okay, release the stress and begin to start quoting scripture. When you're stressed, begin to quote the scriptures. Begin to quote the scriptures. And then I would encourage you to try this week. If you watch news every single day of the week, if you watch it 2 and 3 times a day, I would encourage you to do a news fast. If you watch it once a day, try to go 1 day without watching the news and see what happens. See how you feel. If you watch it twice a day, try to drop it down to once a day. Because many things that are in the news right now, they're really getting people anxious. And so we want to think on those things that are positive. And we want to be able to focus on those things that are preparing us for Christ's soon return. We want to be aware, right? We don't want to tone out the reality of what's happening, but we do want to make sure that we guard our minds so that we're not buying into all the negativity that is being forced on us. Remember, negative thoughts are unhealthy thoughts that can cause disease in the body or dis-ease in the body. And so these are your challenges for the week. And then when we start up next week, I'm going to ask, how did you do with those challenges? So we talked about how to change your behavior for good and for God, and then for good. So once you know why you're doing it for God, it's going to be so much easier to do it for good, because we want to protect your health. Yes, we do. We know we live in a sinful world and we're at risk for many diseases, but we want to protect the health that God has given to us. We want to improve our health. If you have hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol, any conditions, even cancer, we want to make sure that we're living our best life. We're giving our body the best food, nutrients that it needs to function well. And then we want to heal the body from the inside out. That's really how healing happens. Once we start feeling bad on the outside, it's because it happened inside of us. And then we want to use anything within nature, not anything, but use those things in nature, which we know can contribute to health and well-being. And then ultimately, we will have optimum health. We do know that we can do all of this and people will still get sick. That can happen. We've seen it happen. But what I can say to you is when we're obedient to God's laws and we leave the outcome to Him, that is the most important thing. We do not want to take a risk of taking our health in our own hands other than giving our body the best that we can. So again, optimum health is for God's glory so that we can live our best life, so that we can be the healthiest for our family, enjoy those memories and those moments with them, and then so that we can share the good news with the world. That is why we want to live well. That is why we want to change our behavior for God and for good. We really should be the healthiest people. Those who know the Lord should be the healthiest people because He's given us the solution, the remedy of how we can live life and live life abundantly. And so quality of life, quality of our life is dependent on our lifestyle habits. Making healthy choices or has contingent rewards, it should actually have contingent rewards of disease prevention, preservation of health, and prolonged life. So quality of life depends on us. If we're not feeling well, we have to look in the mirror and say, why am I not feeling well? We have to look at ourselves and really ask ourselves that question. And so I'm going to end with this same verse. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. That is what it's all about, is prospering in health. I am going to see, I know we have just a few minutes. I'm going to see if I can bring up the poll. Can you see the poll? Can you see the poll?
No.
Okay. Let's see if I can. Let me stop sharing and then I'll try to bring up the poll. Can you see the poll now?
No.
Okay. Can you see it now?
No. Yeah.
You see the poll now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, can you click on it and see if it will answer?
No, it will not.
Hmm.
Let me see launch. No, it will not work.
Okay, I see it.
Okay, so can you, is there any way that you can click the answers?
Yes.
Okay, so can you go ahead and click the answers once you click the answers? Are you able to click the answers?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me when you're done and then I'm going to end the poll. Let's see if we can, but I don't see any answers coming through. That's bad. So far, I only have one person who's completed it. Are the rest of you taking it? Two people have taken it. I'm gonna wait just a few more minutes. Okay, 3 people took it. Give it just one more minute. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and launch it. So there, and I'm sure the 6th person, they may be counting me twice because I'm actually on another line. So let's end the poll. Okay, so the first question was, my habits today will affect my health tomorrow, and everyone is saying absolutely. So we know that, we're in agreement with that. People can change for good. We all agree about that, and we did have that discussion today. Healthy living can help the body heal naturally. That is true. And if you can change one lifestyle habit, what would it be? One person said eat less and better food choices, exercise more, that's me, rest more, drink more water, think more positive. And then how would you rate your overall health? Fair, poor, and fair. And then the last question was, to make lifestyle changes, we need motivation, absolutely. Prayer is 100%, support from others, resources, the desire, the awareness, and we need all of those. And do you feel motivated to make lifestyle changes? And so 67% says, yes, I feel motivated. And then 33% is saying, not at this time. So when you see those results, and when I see those results, we have to pause and say, we got to pray about this thing. We got to pray about it, because we know that God wants us to live life and live it more abundantly, right? And so as we close out today, our next topic will be health and healing. Next week, we'll be back on the same platform at the very same time. The most important thing that I can say to you is make a decision to change for God. Make a decision to change for God and for good. Because when we do that, if we know that we're doing it for God, we're more likely to do it than even for ourselves. If we know that our Creator God who made us, we're more likely to change for Him. And so we're going to move into ask any questions before I close out. Any questions? Any questions?
No.
Okay. All right. Any prayer requests? Let me just stop the recording. So I want to thank you all for joining today for, changing for good. And so next week will be, our topic will be health and healing. And we're again laying the foundation to a healthier life so that we can live well. And remember your challenges: eat more fruits and vegetables and grains. What was the other challenges? Anybody remember the second challenge?
And fresh air.
Fresh air. Okay. What was the other one?
Exercise.
Okay. What about those positive thoughts, replacing the negative thoughts with positive thoughts, and replacing stress with scriptures? So this week, that's going to be what we're working for. I'm going to actually stop the video.